So what are you working on right now, actually?
What am I working on? I'm working on this book of Malaysian-Singapore writing called The Second Link. So we are putting it together, me and 3 other editors from Singapore and Malaysia. So it's basically meant to like commemorate the 60th anniversary of merger. Because we merged in 1963, Singapore and Malaysia. And when I say commemorate, but really it's just these essays will reflect on the relationship between Singapore and Malaysia. So we thought about this is very important to do. So in like the last phase of editing. So I'm also working on an anthology of Wong Pui Nam's work. So Wong Pui Nam, as some of you know, died last year. So we're thinking about putting out a collection of his selected work sometime this year. This is the year of like other people's work for me, which I think is a nice change. It's like the editor role coming out more, which I think is quite fun. So less of my own work for now.
More of Inane Asylum.
Yes, more of Inane Asylum.
How did it start?
I think we should explain to our listeners. Inane Asylum is basically like an Instagram hashtag that I use in my Instagram stories to catalog what I call instances of the inane asylum. And I think of Singapore basically as an inane asylum. So we are not mad, but we have a lot of inanity. We are like an inane people obsessed with inane things. So that just catalogs that. Yeah, I just thought it was funny. But yeah, it's grown to be quite a thing. Like people submit things to be catalogued on Inane Asylum.
What are your favorite examples?
Wow, that's a good one. There's
Wait, I love the most recent one, the drawing bakwa on the...
Oh yeah. Drying pork belly on the laundry pole. Although I said that's too interesting to be honest. On Inane Asylum. But it's like what's a good one? I'm trying to think of a good example.
Remember the first inane act that started this? The first one that you captured?
I know which one it is. So there was the one that really inspired me was that there was this whole hoo-ha about this like clown, this guy dressed as a clown, loitering outside schools. Yeah. It was a tuition one. Which I guess for parents is mildly threatening, but it became a whole hoo-ha where there were like police reports and then there was like a PR fiasco. And I'm like, do you all have nothing better to do? It's only in Singapore where like I feel this thing would be like national news. And like I think Speaker Tan Chuan Jin put a Facebook post out to like reassure people that this is like we're looking into it. And I'm like, huh? I mean, come on. That was actually the first one that sparked it. I was like, wow, this is really inane. Like people surely have better things to care about.
But what do you see it doing, right? Like, is it for amusement?
It's mostly for amusement. It's mostly for amusement. But I think it's also like it's in some ways tied to the idea of like the state of anything but human, right? This idea of like modernist contentment and perfection. That you have nothing better to do. So that's it. That you sort of go mad, I think. Which is the first part of the book. So I guess you can draw a link there. But it's just really for my own amusement. And community building, I guess. Because people have been submitting it to like it. So yes, please feel free to submit.
Have you read the story written by Daryl Lim in Fish Eats Diner Ducks?
Yeah.
It's so funny.
It's about a bus. A SBS bus, basically, that stops at Serangoon, at a bus stop in Serangoon, but no one departs it. And it just stays there for a few days.
And Daryl's the first to emerge from
I'm
the
the
bus
first.
after 3
In
days.
this story, I'm the first to emerge. So yeah, I'm very honored. The first time I've been written into fiction, I think. Yeah.
I'm actually very interested, now that we mentioned these other names and the history of the 10-year series and that batch of poets. Tell us more about the community, about, I don't know.
So it was the starting days of like Singapore Poetry Writing Month, which I think has made the careers of, or like kickstarted the careers of many poets in Singapore, in English at least. So I was like, me and a few others were at the start of this. So people like Daryl Lim, Amanda Chong, Hao Guang, Joshua, we were at the start. And then we basically the first thing we formed was like a writing collective. And we basically just found like-minded folks to like start writing poetry together. So that's how a lot of us started off. Then I think the 10-year series, which was published by Math Weaver Press, was like the first set of manuscripts that came out of this process called Manuscript Bootcamp, which Singlet Station started. It so happened that a lot of them were like people who were in that first writing group, which we call ISD, by the way. image symbol department. Yeah. Yeah, it just so happened that way. So we became quite a tight group, I think, like a few of us. And we sort of persisted. Now we don't actually do so much workshopping. It's more like a social thing. But we sort of like comment on each other's manuscripts and stuff like that. I think it's important to have that support structure in place if you want to write.
But you all write in like pretty different styles with different consents, right? So how do you still give each other useful critique while respecting each other?
Maybe it's the best way actually. Yeah, because we are like not, in some ways, not writing in the same space. It's actually easier to give objective feedback. I'm also glad that we're not like a collective in the sense of like the futurists or something, you know what I mean? Yeah. Where they have manifestos. I think that's great because in some ways we are so different. And it's good that you have a group of people who can allow you to do something that's so different, but also give you meaningful feedback. Yeah. I think that's what's nice about it. It's not competitive, it's not like workshopping in the kind of like this very like US NFA, but kind of way where it's like, you're like cutting people down to the bone. It's more like a more generous, informal form of feedback, which is great.
And on that note, what advice would you have for, younger poets?
Oh God, just read a lot. I think that's always been my advice to like everyone. So I mentor for like the creative arts program. I just have to read a lot first lah. Don't write so much. Like write minimally, read maximally. Like I think a lot of like young poets think that when they are first writing that they are like the shit. Like they're writing amazing things that no one has written before, but actually it's never true, right? Like people have written before you, they've written much better stuff. So like get exposed and then you can start.
What do you think about the state of Singlit, or narrowly Singapore poetry in English?
Oh, this is very like ponderous question. What do I think about the state? Can I just recycle one of my answers? Yeah, okay, I'll do that. I said before that I think it probably increasingly is less useful to think of Singapore poetry as Singapore poetry, just because it's been so diverse. And because I think a lot of the folks I read probably draw their inspiration from a lot of things elsewhere that they've read. So it can be communities of, let's say, queer poetry, or just other styles of or schools of poetry that they've come across. And that maybe is what the internet really does. It like kind of like allows people to form communities outside of their like national borders. So I think it's increasingly meaningless to talk about Singlit. But maybe the thing I would say is that I wish that people were read outside the Anglophone centers a bit more, meaning US, UK lah, especially the US, which I feel like it's almost like people feel like it's the be all and end all of poetry, which I can see why. I mean, there's great stuff coming out of like the US, but I think attention to like two places, Southeast Asia, which actually has a surprising amount of, it may not be written originally in like English, but there's quite a lot of translation going on. I wish people read more of that. Myanmar, of course, is actually a great place for I would say inventive and quite amazing poetry. Vietnam as well. So there's a lot of stuff going on now. So I would encourage people to read outside of that and read stuff in translation, of course. So I think that will really broaden people's horizon.
There's quite little attention paid to like poetry or literature written in the other three national languages, right? Other than English.
Yes, exactly. So like even starting at home with that is important. So I've been talking about translation a lot. But just to bang the drum again, please translate more. We need to do more of that.
Okay, next. What are the biggest problems and opportunities in the field of Singlit?
Oh God.
Not just writing, maybe like publishing as well.
Oh yeah.
Like the general landscape.
I mean, we've always had, I think, not that many publishing houses, I guess. And now with like, it seems like books actually and math paper press have closed or are on their last legs. So that's bad. There is really no, like, if you were like a aspiring debut poet, there's really no good place to go. Not that many good places to go. So we do need more diversity of like publishers. But I think the real problem it points at maybe is just having an outfit that has really like thought it through end to end in terms of the nitty-gritty of printing, distribution, but also like I think the marketing side of it and the reaching out to readers to develop this dedicated poetry reading public, which I think exists. It's just that no one has really put them together. It used to be Math Paper Press. Math Paper Press tried to do that and did it, I think, fairly successfully. But the problem, I think, with a lot of it was that we didn't have a good like editing culture. So I was just talking about this to some friends. That actually in Singapore, I can't really think, and I'm sorry if this offends anyone, but I can't really think of someone I would think of in poetry as like a great editor. that like people like really think, oh wow, we should talk to him to get his or her or their views. So maybe the age of this kind of like heroic editorship is gone, but I think it would be nice to have more dedicated editors in the scene. But of course, it's a money problem.
Yeah, because like when I talk to published friends, they always say that like the main editors in a high end are like fellow poets, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to like dedicated editors.
Exactly. I think that is a bit of a problem. I don't know if fiction faces the same issues. Probably less so because there's more money in the sort of fiction ecosystem. And I guess it's not that much of an issue because in some ways because people also go overseas, which has worked for a few folks like Hao Guang, who's getting published in Hawaii, Ali Chua, who's getting published in Australia. But it does mean that, for example, a very good book like Hamid Raslan's book, in some ways it's very hard to imagine like a overseas publisher publishing that because it's so in some ways rooted in like Singapore and at least the Singapore and Malaysia, the sort of Malay world region, right? You want a publisher in like Singapore who understands that sort of text and kind of to bring it out. So I think that makes a case for like a local publishing.
Next questions. This one's kind of abstract. Should we all become anything but human?
The hands are also abstract, but this is particularly abstract. Yes, I agree with you. Should we become anything but human? I think we already are. In many ways, we have from the very start been quite augmented by things that are not human, and it's just become increasingly more apparent. So, hello. So we already are.
Okay, last question.
Yes.
Why bird?
Why bird?
Why bird?
Why bub?
Oh, I assume this person is referring to my pet. Yeah, I have a pet bird. I have a pet cockatiel, who's very adorable. There's no why, birds are. Therefore, birds are. But yeah, it's been a huge comfort to me because I live alone. So like having a pet is a nice way of doing things.
Why do you choose a bird though?
Why do I choose?
Yeah, like not a fish or anything else.
Well, you can't do much with fishes. Fishes are just there. Yeah. You can't like pet them or like they are surprisingly. Actually, they're really fun. So cockatiels are good because one, they are in some ways quite independent, so you can sort of let them be for a while. Of course, you should play with them every day. You should give them like some time to fly around, but they're generally quite independent. They don't really demand like constant attention. They won't roam around like disturbing things because they're in the cage. Unlike dogs and cats. Also, I think they can fly, so that's quite cool. Like having a living thing that can fly in your house that's not a cockroach or something. So that's great. And yeah, I mean they can talk and they can sing, so that's also a plus. Therefore, bird.
Yes. Okay, last thing. Is there anything you'd like to share with our audiences?
No, just keep reading. Keep reading good things. Keep reviewing things. I think that helps. And review things with some thought and not just for Instagram. Yeah. Yes.
You have any recommendations?
I'll just tell you what I've read that I've liked. Yeah. I've been reading I've just finished this book by Emily Berry, who's like a UK poet, called Unexhausted Time. The Guardian described her way of writing poetry as incendiary, which I think is correct. It will blow your mind, I think. It's just a way of writing poetry that I've not seen before. Emily Berry.